Richard, I've got some questions. The first one of which,
I wondered why you were in the car.
why have you turned up an hour and a half late to today's shoot?
Tell you what, it's nice to see you. We haven't done one of these in ages.
Yeah,
You and I haven't done anything together on it for a long time.
I know, months.
Let's just talk about that for a bit. Okay, I'm late because I locked myself out of the house.
Right.
I'm actually getting ready this afternoon to go off to the Lake District.
Okay.
And I've got everything packed and ready.
Yeah.
House all safe.
Schedule nice and tight. You know,
Yeah. And then I thought, before I go, I'll empty the bins. So I took the kitchen bin out, the front door. I never lock anything, but it's a Yale lock.
Yep.
Door, dunk,
Yep.
stuck. And then I stood outside and, well, hang on a minute. I was in my Crocs. I was in my dressing gown, but I didn't have my phone, the keys, anything. And it was quite panicky. And I thought, well, what do I do now? I thought about crying, but then I thought, well, that won't help. I felt about 10. Then I thought about legging a brick through the window.
Yep, classic.
Did
you have a go?
It nearly killed me. Oh, okay, I'm not doing that
You
anymore.
didn't throw hard enough.
No, I don't know how burglars make a living. I do not know. So in the end, I had to find a locksmith who got in 5 seconds.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So in short, I'm late because I'm an idiot.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, we forgive you.
Yeah, wasn't the best start to the day.
But
I was such a fool.
you've done a couple of really cool things in 2024. More than a couple, but a couple that people will have no idea about. One of them is you did a pretty epic road trip to France.
Yes.
And then the other one is even more epic than that. But let's start with France.
Well, yeah, I mean, both of these trips came about because Grand Tour came to an end and left a massive hole in my life, obviously, for going off and doing road trips. So I thought, well, rather than just fly down and join them, I can set off at the same time as them, but I'll drive down and have a little road trip.
An adventure.
And then I thought, well, I've got a Porsche 911 Turbo S Cabriolet. And one of the reasons I've got that car is because when I was last in Saint-Tropez, there were loads around, and I just thought, yes.
The perfect GT car.
The perfect GT car. So I didn't take that. And instead, I just bought Daphne, who's a 63 Opel Kadett Caravan, basically an estate Oliver.
Yeah.
I thought, well, if I'm going to do a road trip like I've done on the Grand Tour for all those years, it's got to have an element of challenge. So I took that, which, bearing in mind, had 46 horsepower when it was new, and it's quite tired.
I gathered it became a bit of a Frankenstein car, taking parts from the other, one of your 3 Opels.
May have stolen the diff out of Olivia.
Yes.
And quite a lot of other bits and pieces. And Isaac at the workshop put together a fabulous tools and spares kit, which I needed. Because it's an estate, so it could all fit in.
Cool.
So I just set off. I drifted down to the coast, got on the tunnel, stopped in little hotels, boutique places, met lovely people everywhere I went, had some great dinners with strangers, and just had a great time for 5 days.
Does it do the speed limit?
No,
not quite.
52
Okay.
is kind of, any more than that, it starts to get hot. The weirdest thing was driving along, I'd look out the window at something and think, oh, that looks beautiful. And then I'd think, right, now I've got to turn to camera and say something about it, like pithy or funny.
Yeah.
But no, I don't. I just look and go, hey, that's really beautiful, and that's enough.
You can just stay with your own thoughts and do your thing.
And then I'd stop and buy some nice French bread and cheese and wait until I found a nice spot and have a little picnic sat in the boot.
Lovely.
But on the way back, I'd allowed 5 days for the return journey because I didn't want to push the car. Unfortunately, this is how. So not only did I lock myself out of my house this morning, I rang my younger brother who was coming with me on the next trip, thinking I had 5 days, more, 6 days, in fact. I thought we were leaving on the Thursday. And chatting to Nick, he suddenly said, no, we leave on the Tuesday. Oh! So I had to throw everything in Daphne very quickly and set off and do it in half the time. As a result, I was running at a heady 62 miles an hour.
Oh
no. And I got 138 miles south of Calais, the tunnel, and stopped at the services. I thought, plenty of time, going to be great. Got my food, oh, that was really nice. Right time set off. Nothing at all at the key. Oh, is it solenoid? What is it? Is it electric? Fuses? Went through everything I could. Eventually rang Isaac in the workshop. Mate, it won't start. Ah, right. think I know what that is. What? Ran a few tests. I'd burnt out the starter because I'd asked him to put it on 12 volts from 6, which he had, but it was still a 6-volt starter. So I just burnt it out. Too many starts and restarts.
Okay.
But there was a spare one in the boot. I told you, he packed a comprehensive set of spares. So in the car park of the service station, jacked the car up, didn't have any axle stands, so took the wheels off and used the wheels under the front as axle stands in case it fell on me.
Good.
Getting to the starter motor on one of those is a faff. Manifold has to come off and it's buried right down underneath. It's only little, but it's hard to get to. The manifold studs were rusted, blah, 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 so disconnect the downpipe from the main pipe. A lot of faff.
Quite an ordeal.
Quite a lot of the car came out and was scattered around the car in the car park. Me in shorts and a t-shirt, covered in oil, having a brilliant time.
Fair play.
Because I'm not going to panic. Tools everywhere, people coming up, and they'd stand and look at me, and then they'd look around. And I realised they were looking for cameras.
Yes.
And then they'd say, "So, are you filming? Where's the others?" "No, I've just broken down. I'm
just hanging out.
I'm just mending the car." So 3.5 hours later, I got the replacement starter on, and it started. Well, hey, set off, but then I realised, hang on a minute, it's a 6-volt starter on 12-volt electrics. It will burn out as well. So I need to limit the number of starts and stops. So gone were my heady days of stopping for a nice picnic, looking at the pretty views, just keep going.
Yes.
Got to the tunnel, the French side was absolute bedlam queuing to get on. So then I was sitting in the queues and I had a straight choice between overheating or cutting the engine and it not starting again, and there was nowhere to bump start it because I was in a queue. And a jump start wouldn't work because the starter isn't working.
Yeah.
So that was tense. But then I dashed back and made it home. And I got all the way home running at 60-ish, so pushing it. Got to the yard at home. Oh, thank you, little car. Got my kit out, went into the barn to unpack. Came back out a while later and she was sitting in the middle of the yard just looking up at me with sort of doleful, guilty eyes in a massive puddle of every fluid had come out. And water, oil, the lot. It had just gone, oh, I've done it, I'm finished, and just lost everything.
At least it wanted to get home.
Oh, it got there, but I kid you not, there was petrol, oil and water all over the yard.
Jesus.
Every fluid came out. It just, I think it got so hot running it at that extra speed, everything had expanded when it contracted, a lot of joints worked, then it just, so yeah. But it made it.
Well, yeah, that could have happened on the tunnel.
Yeah,
so
that
that's
was
a good
bad.
one.
But I absolutely loved it because, I've loved the time filming road trips. It's brilliant. But, we're the best part of 100 people strong.
Yeah.
Totally on my own. Me, my mobile phone, a credit card, and my Opel Kadett and a toolkit. And I couldn't have been happier.
Well,
Loved it.
it's cool that you're still motivated to do that, because a lot of people might think that being your day job, you couldn't think of anything worse than doing it all again.
I almost wanted to find out for myself if it was.
Yeah.
I almost did it thinking, well, if I hate this, I know the score. But I loved it. I loved the freedom of it. It was really exhilarating.
Cool. So that was the first trip, but then the other one is, when you told me you were doing it, I was like, you're doing what?
Well, this is because my little brother is 50 this year. And by the way, that makes me feel old. So my kid brother's 50th, and he wanted to do something, and we've got a great bunch of mates. We share a lot of friends, and they all ride bikes. And so we decided to go to the Himalayas.
To the Himalayas?
Yes. And ride bikes, Royal Enfields, Himalayans, over the tallest navigable, motorable pass in the world. It's about 21,500 feet. It's higher than Everest Base Camp.
Cool.
So the air is thin, the roads are shaky. There were 8 of us, and just a mixed bunch of friends, some military friends of mine, banker friends of Nick's, my brother's, all sorts. Really mixed bag of guys. But I figured they'd all be able to handle a road trip, because there's a few rules. Like, we can all be a dick occasionally, but you've got to not overdo it, because you're going to ruin it for everybody else. But more importantly, if somebody else is annoying you, you cannot give in to that and see.
Define being a dick.
Not getting up on time.
Okay.
Not having the right kit. Riding like an idiot. just being annoying.
Okay.
Which I know it's hard to think of me not being, but you've got to have give and take. It's got to be people who can go, okay, they're annoying the hell out of me right now, but they've probably got their reasons. Maybe they're missing home or they're tired. I'm going to leave them to it, and then reconnect with them when the time's right. So we all flew Air India. We couldn't all fly, posh. So we decided, okay, well, let's all of us fly coach.
Good luck.
Yep.
Bit of a dent for you there.
Well, no, it was all right, but it was very basic indeed. It's not like British Airways
Cool.
economy. But we had a laugh. We'd been told strictly, because we land at some altitude already, they said no drinking. Right. Yeah, that didn't work. And we arrived at a hotel and collected the bikes and set off and had the most incredible 8-day adventure. I will give him a credit, a guy called Toby at Ride Expeditions. We paid full price for the tour. I didn't blag it or anything, but I'm all credit to the guy. I've seen him a couple of times since. What a fantastic operation. So we had 8 bikes, plus 2 guides on bikes, plus a truck following us with all the luggage in, plus a spare rider in case one of us got injured or didn't want to ride on. And it was epic. What a journey.
I mean, that genuinely sounds like a sort of Vietnam special rivaling
Oh,
journey.
yeah, a lot of it was very off-road. More off-road than when we did Vietnam on the bikes all those years ago on Top Gear, like proper off-road. Really off-road. And even when there are roads in the Himalayas occasionally, well, they have a lot of landslides.
Yes.
Obviously, it's the Himalayas. But it doesn't mean there's a bit of gravel. It might be 50 feet high and 1/3 of a mile long. Just rocks and gravel and mess, and you've got to ride up and over it and down the other side. And then a lot of the roads, Himalayan roads, obviously, there's a lot of drops, big drops. And what we notice is when they're repairing the roads there, they don't close them, they leave them open. So that you'll be riding a nice tarmac stretch like this. Oh, beautiful view, this is fantastic. And then all of a sudden, there is no road, just gravel and rocks. And the only available grip is on the outside of a bend, but there's an Indian lorry coming the other way, and it isn't going to give way. Might is right over there, so you're going to have to move. So yeah, we all fell off a number of times, but no injuries. Quite a lot of snapped brake levers, etc., but they have spares.
Cool.
And it was, again, what was a joy was living with the rhythm of a road trip when you know you've got to get up on time and be at your vehicle or you're letting the whole gang down. You can't. So however bad the hangover or the altitude sickness, out of bed, buy your bike at whatever time in the morning we'd agreed. But it wasn't filming.
Yes.
It was for the experience, which meant I was immersed, I was in it, experiencing it, living it, rather than reporting it, because our job on Grand Tour was to share the experience and try and bring it to life for the viewer. But on this trip, it was just selfish. It was just for me to have a great time, to see amazing places, to ride amazing roads.
Does that make you think on some of the Grand Tour and Top Gear trips you went on that there was actually something missing from every single one of those trips because you didn't have that kind of relaxing, just with the boys experience?
I mean, maybe, but to be fair, I was with mates anyway doing the Grand Tour, and not just James and Jeremy, the whole crew. We'd known each other 20 years. So we were experiencing it. And there was a lot of it that wasn't filmed because it was dark or we didn't need that bit. But to have the more pure sort of unplugged experience, it definitely told me I want to do more road trips on my own, just to do them. Whether it's solo, like when I went indefinitely to the south of France, or with a bunch of mates. We're going to do another one. We've already started planning.
Yeah. Any clues as to where?
Well, he's recommending a good one in Africa. It's a bit longer, so it'll be a couple of weeks. Different bikes, same bunch of people. And we are all thinking, we do another one. And then I'd like to do another trip in Oliver. I've got a secret yearning, because Oliver was made in Johannesburg, as was Olivia and Daphne. All 3 were built there. No way. You see, I did look at getting them to Africa, but at 50 miles an hour, it's a bloody long way. So, and you've got quite a lot of bits of Africa to get through to get to South Africa that you probably don't.
Yes.
Not right now. But it would be achievable to drive them to Morocco, Marrakesh, which is African sand. to get African sand on their wheels. I would love to do it. The only problem is, you see, while I was planning that on the way back in Daphne, and I was thinking, God, that would make a great film. But then I'd be working. But
yes.
I don't know if...
Well, this is it. You've had a taste of that now.
Yeah, but if I did it for DRIVETRIBE, it'd be slightly different because it's, we travel light. It wouldn't be as hefty. I don't know. I'll think about it. It would be... I would love to do it. I really would.
Well, if anyone wants to sponsor that, give us a shout.
Absolutely. And all 3 cars are the same. So you'd need one really comprehensive spares package.
So speaking of Africa, the last time we did one of these, you were in pre-production for the final Grand Tour. Obviously since then, you've been there, you've filmed it, it's gone out. So although you've been asked this before, how does it genuinely feel that the Grand Tour has now ended?
Still hasn't sunk in.
Really?
Genuinely. No, I don't... I still wake up as the little guy off that massive car show. I still think instead, because we were doing the trips, so twice a year we go off and do them, and then the rest of the time we're planning them. It was always sort of in the background, so it could still be in the background is how it feels.
Yeah.
No, I think I'll be probably middle of next year, I'll suddenly wake up one morning and go, oh my God, it's ended! It feels really strange. And I know I'm going to miss it massively. I am going to miss... Because it was like having something always there waiting for you that you know you're going to go and do. It's going to be amazing and a privilege. I make programs, that's what I do. And I knew at the beginning of any year at some point I was going to be involved in making 1, 2 massive programs and loved being part of that machinery. And I loved being part of that huge machine. And it feels very weird not being.
Do you think that mindset's kind of exclusive to you out of the 3 of you, or do you think all 3 of you are thinking the same thing?
I wouldn't know. I suspect that I imagine they're feeling it. I'm not, there's probably some relief because it was hard.
Yeah.
It's the end of an era for us. It's well over 2 decades of working together, doing big, amazing things in the thing that I do. I make car shows. That's what I love doing. And I was lucky enough to get to do it on the biggest scale ever that had never been done before.
You kind of nailed it.
Well, it worked. Yeah, we're so lucky. but it's very odd to get my head around the idea that I'm not doing that now. That I'm not at some point. It's always in the back of my mind, oh yeah, come April next year or whatever, we'll be on that trip and we're having meetings and talking about what we're going to do and what we're going to see. That isn't happening again. Nope, that hasn't gone in.
Okay. And I think people absolutely loved the way that the whole thing rounded out on Kubu Island. What did you 3 actually say to each other outside of the handshake and the radios? What did you actually say once the cameras were down?
What else can you say other than it's been huge? I said a massive thank you. I said a huge thank you to Jeremy and Wilman.
Yeah.
Because they gave me the job and they didn't have to. So I owed them for that, and I told them. And to all of us, we all were still trying to absorb it. But the most important thing was the way it took off was beyond our control, because all we set off doing was making the best car show we could. That's all we ever wanted to do.
Yeah.
I remember right from the very first meetings at the beginning of the 2000s at the BBC, the conversations. And it grew into something that we could never have foreseen. We had no idea. We didn't know. We were just making a car show. I'd watched Top Gear with Jeremy on it as a kid. So we just thought, well, we'll carry on doing that, but we'll do it our way and make it as good as we can. We didn't know we were going to end up filling the Polish National Stadium with 62,000 people watching our live show. We didn't know we were going to go all over the world having incredible adventures. I thought I'd be reviewing Vauxhall Astras.
Yes.
Which, by the way, I was happy about.
Your Men and Motor stuff is great.
Exactly. I
Great.
was happy enough to be doing that, but we didn't know. So the takeoff was out of our control, which is why it meant so much that we could land it under our control at a time, in a place, and in a manner of our choosing. Because it gave us a kind of some semblance of control. This is what I wouldn't speak for the others, but this is what I feel. Okay. It certainly mattered to me that we chose, right, now we're going to land it, and we're going to land it like this. And it worked a dream. It did. But obviously, having landed it, I'm looking up thinking, it was quite exciting. I've enjoyed that.
Okay. But now you're going to be sitting on the sofa one day, and a new Grand Tour is going to come out with some new presenters. Obviously, if there is some very secretive information, there's no way you can say it, but is there anything that you can say or that you do know about what's going on at Amazon right now?
No, not beyond that there are conversations taking place with lots of people, and they will, I'm sure, relaunch. And I'll be keen to watch it, as keen as everybody else to watch it. It's always going to be difficult because the format, such as it is, evolved around us. It grew up around us. It came from us. But actually, when you think about it, if you can find the right bunch of people, it can be done. Absolutely. Of course it can be done.
I mean, you could argue like Top Gear got into a bit of a swing of things later on.
I think it was.
Found a bit of a formula.
Yeah, I think it was. I think where it perhaps went wrong is trying to encourage people to sort of be us. Well, why? We're not the only three blokes. We're just three blokes. I mean, we work because if you look across the three of us, none of us is a supermodel. None of us is actually a genius. None of us is the best driver in the world. But all three of us possess a mix of qualities. I always thought if you were to squash all three of us together into one lump, physically and in terms of attributes, and then divide that into three equal-sized pieces, you'd probably have three pretty reasonable human beings. Which is why people could see themselves in us watching the show. So there's no reason why that can't happen again, as long as it's given time and space to evolve its own language, its own style, its own format points in its own time, and take an audience with it. Then absolutely, why wouldn't that happen? We still like watching adventure, watching challenge, watching interpersonal relationships, watching cool cars and machinery in places you wouldn't expect to see it. That's kind of, they can do that.
I think everyone will agree that the ending, as you're saying, you chose what you wanted to do, and I do think you and the team absolutely nailed it. If you were completely honest with yourself, do you reckon that Grand Tour or Top Gear peaked at any point? And if so, what would you pick as the peak?
There were peaks along the way, and inevitably. So, I mean, key moments on Top Gear, when we did the supercars for the price of a Ford Mondeo. And we were sort of out adventuring in the world, and we realised, wait a minute, this doesn't feel like anything we've done before, all the cheap car challenges. When Botswana turned out to be the first special where the whole programme was given out to a journey, that was another little peak along the way. I don't know that, because it wasn't just straight growth, it was change, it was progress. So it wasn't on a scale of hitting a peak, it was moving forwards and growing and changing, and it continued to do that right to the end.
I would love to be able to sit like 2002 Richard Hammond in front of like the biggest Grand Tour episode you ever did, the biggest budget one, and just be like, right, this is what this becomes.
Yeah, but if you'd done that, I wouldn't have bothered trying.
Really?
Yeah, there was no complacency in the show. Ever.
Okay.
We never took it for granted. We always felt grateful for the opportunity and slightly surprised and puzzled. There was always a sense of, are we really allowed to, are we really doing it? Can we? Okay. So we were always aware, and that's not just, us four with Wilman, it's crew as well. That crew, you never get to bring a crew that big together. No shows have the budget, but that one did. So we all knew it was a privilege. We all did. And so there was never any complacency. There's never any, we're the big guys. No, we're just like, we've got to keep going, we're going to make it better. We never stopped trying.
Was there ever a worry that bubble would potentially burst, or did it just keep railroading down the line?
If James was here, he had a theory that we all agreed with, actually, which he always thought it only takes one. Because we were having an amazing time doing something that we were so lucky to get to do.
Yeah.
And people were watching it, which enabled us to do it. And James's theory was always that it only takes one person watching on their sofa who turns to the next one and, this is ridiculous, isn't it? Oh my God, you're right. You're right, it is. And we figured it would then take milliseconds globally. They'd be ringing their friends in Africa, Russia, all the places where the show was watched. Word would get out. It's ridiculous. They're just three stupid blokes messing about. And we'd wake up the next day and the whole thing had gone.
Yeah.
It was James's theory. And we all of us immediately went, God, you could be right. One day that could happen. The world will realise they're just idiots, aren't they? Yeah. And we'd be finished. So
but it never happened.
No. That's another reason for landing it when we chose to, because we thought let's just land it under control and then we can walk away and whistle, and nobody will notice that we're just three buffoons. When we went on stage at the Polish National Stadium, 62,000 people. We're backstage waiting to go on. We've got our microphones on. These things and the sealed earpieces, so because obviously it's a big crowd, you just hear each other. And we were going on to do the live stage show in the arena, and in the pause, two things happened. One, I said, lads, yeah, they were all distant, sitting in their cars waiting to drive on and do stunts. Lads, yeah, is anybody else a bit nervous for the first time? And we went, yeah, for the first time we were nervous. And then there was a pause, and then I said, lads, yeah, have three people with less talent ever gone out in front of a bigger audience? No, I don't think they have, actually, because we're not a band. We can't do anything. Yeah. We were just going to go out and goof about. But there was a joyfulness in that. There really was.
But that's what's so perfect with you three, though, because you could nail it and everyone claps and cheers, or you could completely it up.
Yeah.
And everyone
we did rather engineer it. That was purely by accident, because we do cock up a lot. And we realised, if you're standing in front of a crowd of 60,000 people and one of you forgets their lines, that is far from a bad thing as far as the audience is concerned. Yeah. It's brilliant. Yeah. Or you're doing a stupid race, or one of you messes up a stunt. That's a win. So, in that sense, we couldn't lose. The only way we could have lost, I suppose, would have been by being boring. But that was unlikely. It just didn't happen. It never happened with us. When we were filming Lockdown in Scotland, yes. And on the one day, totally spontaneously, not planned stunts at all, Jeremy's caravan came unhitched from his car and overtook him before plunging into the woods. I was like, what happened then? And then I sank a fishing boat.
Yes.
None of those were planned.
That poor boat.
Yeah, but they just happened. And we did, I think it was Jeremy afterwards who said, God, we're lucky, aren't we? What do you mean? Well, that stupid stuff like that just happens when we are doing things. And it did. And it was...
Michael Portillo can't derail a train.
No.
And it's all, great show.
No, but we can have... Either those two things, but they were accidents, they were disasters. There would have been a disaster on another production, or they'd have planned it, and then it would have been a stunt, and you'd have needed stunt coordinators in 2 days to shoot. It took my boat, I think it was about 8 seconds to sink. It just went. Now I'm in the sea. And we were lucky that those things happened. As Jeremy put it, when I go on holiday, boats don't generally sink and caravans don't come unhitched, but it just happens when we go away. So,
well, we've got some Grand Tour cars to pick through now. We've got the Capri, the SSR, the DB9. There's a few things.
This is something fun. I mean, I think 25 for DRIVETRIBE is going to be a really good one. We got a big event coming up.
Yep.
Several big events. I'd like us to film some adventures. I'd like us to push our cars a bit further on and do some cool stuff with them. I'd be interested in suggestions, by the way. But I'd love us to have a think of how we can... We've got an important role to play in this coming year. The car is undergoing monumental change, the biggest change it has since the dawn of it, over a century ago. But it's not doom and gloom, it's not bad. I firmly believe the car will never become an anonymous, autonomous box. There will be such a thing that you can hit your smartphone and it arrives and takes you to school. But this that we're doing now, bodily moving ourselves from where we are to where the thing is that we need to get to, that's quintessentially human, and the means of doing it will always be celebrated, embraced, engaged and loved. So it's never going to go away.
There's also some potential content this coming year with synthetic fuels. I know you're starting to get knee deep in that stuff now. So
well, I'm a firm believer again, you know, we can't hit the electric targets that are being bandied about. It won't happen because it can't happen.
Yeah.
And it doesn't need to happen. I think when governments and big industry stops dropping £4 billion here and there on a battery gigafactory and instead scales up, harvesting carbon dioxide at source from factories that are producing it from making other stuff that we need, or indeed pulling it out of the atmosphere, which can be done. Once it's done at scale and combined with clean hydrogen made with renewable energy, you have a fossil-free fuel. There are emissions, yes, but you're not adding to anything that's already in the atmosphere. And if we're pulling it out of the atmosphere, you've got your carbon negative. And that can be done now. And 1.6 billion cars don't have to be remade. We don't have to turn every filling station into a charging station and incur a carbon footprint that will have to be borne on the shoulders of everybody using it for the next 1,000 years. There are alternatives. Engineers have already solved it. It's just politics that gets in the way. But the word will get out because it's inevitable. Common sense will prevail. It always does.
I can hear people typing Hammond for Prime Minister as we speak right now.
There are loads of alternatives. The future is not a dull, grey landscape full of formless boxes shuffling anonymously and autonomously from one place to another. It's going to be vibrant and filled with fun because the car is a fundamental expression of what it is to be human, and we're not going to let it down because it's never let us down.
It's going to be full of, well, at least one twin-turbo pickup truck as well.
My big orange pickup.
How's this car going?
I love it.
It's cool.
It's funny. It's orange. Yes, I do love a pickup.
So you had the TRX before this, but this has kind of shrunk by about 10%.
But that's the point. This is a little more usable.
Yeah.
It hasn't been put through the photocopier on 200%, only on about 120, which means it does fit into my life.
But to be fair, just to defend the TRX, we're talking half the power.
Yeah.
It's not got a supercharger.
No, the TRX is an epic thing in its homeland.
Okay.
That was my only problem with the thing. It didn't fit. But if you've got the space for it in your life, it's extraordinary. But these things, the Raptor, I love it. Oh, another thing I'm looking forward to for next year, my steam car.
Oh, God. I've
You've
seen that
it.
thing at
It's
HMS.
brilliant.
It looks terrifying.
It's
Richard.
104 years old, Stanley steamer. It'll do 50 miles an hour.
That is ridiculous.
Well, we're going to restore that and get that going. There's an event at Eastnor Castle in May, and I want to take it restored and run it.
So it's going to be one of these things, if you want to drive it, you have to go out an hour before, probably?
Once it's working properly, 20 minutes.
Oh.
It's a flash boiler.
Okay.
So you're not boiling a huge
I
quantity
guess
of water.
for steam, that's quite good.
Yeah, I mean, it's still a pretty crap ambulance. Because you're not going to, it's not a fast response vehicle, and it's not a very good getaway vehicle either. No. But for gallivanting about, well, that was an alternative form of propulsion, wasn't it?
Okay.
So I think for this year, as we're looking at alternatives to internal combustion engines, steam engines should be explored.
Yeah. Project Car 2025 steam car.
Well, it's an alternative. It's an alternative type of car.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Well, thank you, Richard. It's been good to chat.
Always a pleasure.
Guys, if you want to get tickets, you want to pre-order tickets for DRIVETRIBE Live, link is in the description below. And yeah, thanks, Richard.
Yeah, I hope to see you at DRIVETRIBE Live.